The Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. On one occasion, when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. When he noticed how the guests chose the places of honor, he told them a parable. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not sit down at the place of honor in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host, and the host who invited both of you may come and say to you, "Give this person your place," and then in disgrace you would start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, "Friend, move up higher." Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. He also said to the one who had invited him, "When you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends or your siblings or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you. For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. A place for everything and everything in its place. It's so simple, so proverb-like, so beautiful of a sentiment, words to live by. It's no secret that I like things in order. In my office, books are sorted by category and then alphabetized by author. Loose papers are neatly tucked away in folders organized by ministry team or topic. And artwork is arranged like a small gallery. My little slice of heaven, a place for everything and everything in its place. 2 weeks ago, I was wrapping up things in the sacristy just above the worship space, where only moments ago hundreds of voting members and visitors had celebrated closing Eucharist at the ELCA church-wide assembly. During that past week, I served as a part of the assembly worship staff. Behind the scenes, it felt a bit like what I imagine a stage manager at a Broadway production must feel like. I remember vividly all of the racks of albs that I had sorted neatly by size, steaming vestments and paraments and trying not to burn myself in the process, and daily rehearsals with scores of worship assistants and worship leaders in varied roles, all to ensure a seamless and meaningful liturgical experience for all who were gathered to worship. And the leader guides, the seating charts, and the clear-cut rubrics left little room for questioning. There was a place for everyone, and everyone had their place. In public spaces, too, we're used to these kinds of clear boundaries and places of honor or distinction. In our corporate workplaces, there's a difference between the corner office and an ordinary cubicle. At restaurants, when given the choice, you'd rather sit at the window booth or on the patio than at the table with the wobbly leg by the restroom. But you get the point. There are clear places viewed more highly than others. All of which helps us to understand the premise behind Jesus' parables today. He's invited to the house of a prominent religious leader for a grand meal with elite guests, all of whom are competing for the best seats at the table, closest to their host, where they can be seen and recognized. Meanwhile, Jesus, quietly observing all of this from the side, offers a parable. Actually, he says, don't take the best seats. What if someone more important should come along? Well, that would be embarrassing for you, wouldn't it? Instead, just take the lowest seats. And if that's not enough, Jesus goes on to critique the guest list of the very party he's been invited to. Don't invite all of the important people, people who can invite you back and repay you, but invite the ones who can't pay you back, the ones with no social standing, the ones you would normally overlook. This isn't just a lesson in table etiquette, though. It's not a story about place cards or invitations or dinner reservations. The point isn't really even about who sits where. This is a story about humility. Now, humility is a strange concept. It wasn't exactly considered a virtue in Jesus' day, and it's not exactly the most intuitive concept in our own culture either. Humility is often seen as the opposite of pride, and we like to take pride in our identities and in our achievements. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. So maybe we need a better definition of humility. Consider the CTA, for example, or any public transit in just about any major city. If you ride any of the train or bus lines with some regularity, you've likely witnessed the familiar scene of the person who so graciously and publicly makes a display of giving up their seat when someone older or pregnant or living with a visible disability comes aboard, so that everyone can see what a good person they are, having made room for this other passenger. Well, that's not humility. But instead, I want to suggest that humility is something more like standing up before such a person would get on, making a place for others before they show up. Humility acknowledges that there are others who are not at the table. It doesn't ask us to consider ourselves as less valuable or take the lower place for its own sake. But humility does invite us to be aware of others who don't always get a place at the table, and to make space for them, even if we don't know who they are or if they're not even here yet. Humility is the grace to live in community and to embody the kind of welcome and hospitality that Jesus showed us when he dined not just with prominent religious leaders, but with sinners and tax collectors. Still, there's often a hesitation for those of us who have always had a place of distinction at the table. And I think that hesitation boils down to fear. Is there going to be enough? Enough space, enough food, enough fill in the blank? Whenever I'm at a large conference or gathering with a meal that's being served buffet style, I seem to have a knack for either choosing or being assigned to one of the last tables to be dismissed to get our food. And I'm also not exactly known for being the most patient person. As I keep eyeing the line in the buffet tables, letting my anxiety get the better of me, surely they'll run out of food before it's my turn. And yet, in all of my years of buffet meals, there's always been enough. Of course, there's enough. At God's banquet table, there is a place for all and enough for all. That's Jesus' point. I don't think he really cared about who sat where for dinner. Instead, he's showing us what the reign of God looks like. A place for everyone, and everyone has a place. There are no reservations or invitations required, no cost, no dress code. There are no prerequisites to sharing in this meal. We don't even have to all agree about what we believe to share this meal. We just have to be hungry for a word of grace and forgiveness and wholeness. Christ invites us to a table where all are welcome, where no one is turned away, where there is enough for all, and where no one lacks for food. At this table, there is a place for you.